So this caught my eye as an interesting bit of news. Jordan Peterson, who I'm sure some of you hate and some of you probably love, given the nature of our audience, has returned back into the public spotlight. He appeared on his daughter's podcast, a June 2020 family update of sorts. I actually encourage some of you to go watch the whole thing. So Peterson famously, Ryan, retreated from public life last year, I think almost exactly a year ago, and he was actually in Russia for a physical dependence to benzodiazepine, which is an anti-anxiety medication, which he was prescribed initially on a low dose following a severe autoimmune disease. All kind of coincided with his wife was diagnosed with an incurable form of cancer, and whenever he was trying to get off the drug, his body actually went into shock, and so then he had to go into treatment and go all the way to Russia. So it's kind of a crazy story, but one of the things that he announces in the podcast there is that he's writing another book. This one is called 12 More Rules for Life, Beyond Mere Order. You were laughing a bit about the title there because the previous one was called 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. Is an interesting little development there, but broadly, I mean, it's a very sad story about somebody, had trouble with substance abuse and obviously was going through a very difficult time and had his own health problems, given that he was trying to cure through his diet along with his daughter. And it's just somebody that a lot of people care, he's a big sensation and somebody that I think has largely escaped mainstream media attention to the extent of what he's actually saying and not kind of caricatured versions, regardless, again, of what you think of his beliefs. Like the most potent takedowns I've seen have come from people on the progressive left or, whatever. And I think the most potent defenses I've seen have also been, people like Joe Rogan and other members of the intellectual dark web kind of that I've seen on YouTube. The mainstream media has always kind of missed exactly what is going on there as a phenomenon. So I just find it was an interesting bit of news that I want to bring people updated on.
Yeah, I laughed at the book title because it has a very too fast, too furious kind of flavor to it. 12 Rules sold phenomenally.
It was so the publisher's like,
I got it. 12 more rules.
12 more rules. That's right. Rules. That's right. You're a publisher. You get it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If he brought that thing's gonna sell $1 billion copies.
Yeah.
And his third book, 12 more rules. There's absolutely no end to the
36th rules.
Yes, 36. 100 rules to I guess it'd be 144 rules at some point. At some point, he is a cultural phenomenon. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it, and his mere existence as a phenomenon, points to a lot of underlying issues in our society that the left needs to take more seriously than it does, because
I'm glad you said that.
Because it doesn't, then Jordan Peterson is the guy that they listen to and they get their rules of life for, and then you move from Jordan Peterson to people adjacent to him and beyond, and next thing you know, they're in QAnon territory. So
there's not a connection between QAnon.
But the left doesn't take the angst and confusion and rage of his audience seriously enough to engage with it and draw them kind of in their direction. The closest effort to it is probably the Young Turks, where I'm a contributor. But beyond that, there's nothing really kind of broad or systematic going on. It's a space that's really colonized by the right, and there appears to be not much of an effort to combat that.
Yeah, there really isn't. I'm glad you said that, because it requires compassion. That's something that Link Crystal is also. I mean, what distinguishes her, I think, from a lot of the other progressive left is that she's willing to have compassion for people who think differently or would have, their concerns and all that. And you're never going to get somebody to listen to you if you don't have compassion for them. It's one of the biggest problems that the right makes too, demonizing too many of its enemies without demonizing and turning off people who otherwise, in my view, would be very susceptible, to not even susceptible, would be on your side if it just wasn't for a feeling that they feel rejected entirely in their identity from associating with you. Peterson has always been somebody who I've respected more on that front, in just that, I mean, it's funny because I see the caricatures of him being like, it's fascism and all this, and I'm like, he's telling men to make their beds. Right. Okay, he's like trying to provide structure to people's lives. Like, a lot of people need that.
The left too often, their message to young men is that you're not supposed to have problems.
Yeah.
And if you have,
especially if you're a young white man.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have problems, those are your own fault. And so, okay, if that's the message that's coming from here, then they're going to go elsewhere looking for answers, rather than the left doing what it's so good at doing in so many other situations, which is pointing to the systemic abuses that exist, the oppressions that are across races, across age ranges, across genders. And trying to tie those people to a common project of emancipation and human betterment. Instead, that welcome is not kind of put out there.
Yeah, it's a very missing blind spot, and I think one that will cost them, electorally as a movement and socially. But I thought it was interesting, Ryan. Okay, tomorrow on Rising, journalist Matt Taibbi. He discusses the controversial bestseller White Fragility. I cannot wait for that one.
And the head of the New York State Working Families Party, Sochi Namika, will also join us.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. All right, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a video, and we will see you guys tomorrow.